building the organization, creating a workplace through the value of empathy, respect, helping people navigate careers, helping people build their careers. Yeah, I feel AI is here to complement what we are doing and help industry move forward. Bigger the organization, the more touch points you need to have, a better change management you need to have. I think what it's a building block, right? Like talking out of my own experience, I've had multiple setbacks in my career. So also about how are we crafting our benefits for all talent segment, and how are we crafting our talent strategies, not just the benefit, but also the way we are hiring them, training them, retaining them, growing them in the organization.
Masters Union, a B school based out of Gurgaon, bridges the gap between students and industry by doing a lot of CXO sessions. As a part of this initiative, in today's edition, we have Ms. Bhumika, who is the people head of Walmart Global Tech, and she has been a part of some dream companies for all the audience out there. She's been a part of Snapdeal, Yahoo, Tesco, Polygon, and a lot of other big names in her journey. Also, she's involved with a lot of startups as a board advisor and an angel investor. A very warm welcome to you, Bhumika, for today's edition of CHR Exchange with us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So, Bhumika, while I was narrating your introduction, your journey has been nothing short of fantastic, right? You've been a part of multiple different organizations. People who are listening would want to be part of at least one of those organizations at some point of time in their life, right? So just very curious to know how's been your journey like. Maybe if you can narrate from your childhood itself, right? Like, what are the series of events which has happened? What has motivated you to, to climb at this level of, at peak in your life, right? So if you can narrate about your journey, your wins, maybe, some of your losses as well, right? So we'll be happy to know about that.
Sure. Not that I ever planned to become a head of HR since beginning, but a lot of it got inspired by my father. Seeing him, he was head of personal with the steel ministry and also with one of the Navratna companies. So he was working with copper mines. And I saw childhood in a very community-based, I come from a community-based environment. A lot of that has shaped me into what I am today or who I am today. And I'll take you back to, my early childhood days. I'm a KV product, and my mom has been, she served as principal in one of the KV and then later on in Delhi. I grew up in a very, as I said, community-based system. So in my childhood days, a lot of our class project used to be about community. It used to be about reviving, let's say, a park. It used to be about getting reviving homes for tribal community around the copper mines. It used to be a lot about that, and we used to go along with our, my father's colleagues and all of them to go and sort of have that kind of experience. And very early on, I realized that how community operates, it's never about, you give money to someone and you tell them, go build this, right? And my job is done. It was about convincing them, sitting with them, understanding their problem, talking to them about why it is going to be useful for them. And I'm specifically talking about tribal community experience was such defining experience for me and shaped my personality in terms of seeing up and close as to how work with these communities and how to uplift them, right? So that was one through project. I also saw my father doing, in his role, it was required for him to also do a lot of negotiation with tribal communities and also people in and around where the mines was there to let them know why the development is going to be helpful for them. So that, these experiences had really a huge impact and shaped me. And I was very fascinated, got very, very fascinated with what my father used to do. And look at unions, how he used to manage unions and how an HR personnel in such a large Navratna government organization deals with something like that was also very, very fascinating. So that shaped, and I thought probably, I did my graduation in biochemistry, it's very, you'll find it very interesting. So biochemistry, and then I have nothing to do with biochemistry. So I did my MBA in HR, and that's when I thought like, okay, HR probably. But at that point in time, my idea of HR was all about policies, process, union, sort of conflict resolution. But I eventually have realized that's also about, building the organization, creating a workplace through the value of empathy, respect, helping people navigate careers, helping people build their careers and build their life eventually. So that has been very, very fascinating.
I think that's very interesting to understand. I think two key messages which I learned from this one answer was, first, early impact and early experiences in the life shape who you are as a human, right? So, and I think you've picked up those lessons way early in your life from family, community, and all of that, right? And I think essentially that is what has probably shaped you as a smart individual at this point of time in life, right? Second, I think was fantastic to know that, anyone who's hearing this, HR is just not about policy making. It's all about building company, building organization. You are the people leader, you are the people carer, right? You give care, you receive the best result, right? So I think on this, I would want to know more, right? So essentially, what are the different strategies, right? I mean, maybe like a sneak peek into as an HR leader, what are the different strategies or uniqueness, you bring in to make sure that, in today's world, there's a game around retention, right? So to make sure that, people retain, people value the organization a lot. For example, if I take this case to Tatas of the world, right? People, generation after generation, just want to be with Tatas, right? So what are the different strategies you think work really well, and what the future leaders can understand from you and can understand from you in terms of what should we do to, make sure we evolve as an organization that way?
You gave a fantastic example, right? And from that, I can talk about Walmart.
Yeah.
If you look at Walmart, we have associates with us for 30 years,
Wow.
35 years, 60 years, 65 years, right? And we've also seen our associates working stores generation after generation. That's the sense of belonging that our associates have for the organization. I think it completely depends on the values of the organization and how you weave those values into everything that you do, right from your business decisions to your people strategy and people practices, and how you're building your community. Again, going back to the same point in terms of, even if you look at Walmart values, respect for individual, customer service, excellence in customer service, right? These values define who we are. And we help our customers across worldwide to live better. That's the purpose that we all live for. How well organization is communicating the purpose, weaving the values in the process, weaving the values in all the strategy that you spoke about, whether it is business strategy, talent strategy, people strategy, defines that sense of belonging for everyone in the organization. And that helps in retaining, that helps in also creating community, and that also helps, right, for associates to fall back on each other, create a culture of trust and transparency.
Yeah. So that is very interesting to understand, and one important thing over here would be a lot of these listeners, right, are also budding entrepreneurs. And while just sales and product is not the key, it's all about how do you build an organization, because once you scale, you need those values for everyone to, to stick to that one common vision and vision. And I think having that, learning from you would be fantastic for them. Now, I think I'll also take a step back, right? So while I understand, for example, 2,000 people in an organization, all of this is very important. But how do we make sure we get the right side of people with the right mindset at this level, right? So I think, right hiring is also a very critical decision, right? To build that stable organization. So just want to understand your point of view on that what are the key factors you would want to consider when when you build a right organization in terms of people, in terms of, people come with the right mindset is essentially what I'm trying to drive at.
I'll say two things, right? One is the skills part of it, and the other one is, as you said, right behaviors and right match to the company value. How do you assess it, right? So one is, today skill landscape is changing so fast. If you look at technology, it's pretty much every year there's a new technology coming up, the new use cases coming up. how do we continue to focus on, and I would say this going back to the academia as to how important it is for them to make sure that they are teaching the relevant skills,
Yep.
and for organizations to be more focused on skills, right? Like we are also seeing in industry a shift from, educational qualification coming from a certain background to skills. Skill is defining everything in the organization. It's very important. And skill then gets weaved into everything. So how do we hire right skills for right positions in the organization? And also when we say potential or right mindset, it's about the values, how an individual's personal values align to the company's value, because ultimately it's a matter of what and how both.
Absolutely.
So what you end up doing in the organization, but also at the same time how you're doing, how you're building relationships in the organization, the softer aspects, right? Like relationship building, resilience, right? Growth mindset, all of these things become very, very important. So we definitely make sure that we are talking to, our candidate or audience. We look at how they're well aligned with our values. We also look at how they keep themselves up with terms of the skill landscape that is there, that's going on in the industry, how they're keeping themselves updated with all of these things. So that becomes very important for us to assess.
So I think everyone who's learning, who is listening to this podcast, skills and intent is the key, right? If you have both of them right at the right place, you can crack any kind of dream role. Also, you talked about technology in the last answer, right? And that brings me to a very interesting pathway, right? So there's a lot of talk on, how would AI complement HR, right? And any emerging technology for that matter, right? Whenever there is an emerging technology burst, there is a talk around all central functions, right? How will this help that? How will this help that? So I think just want to hear it from you that what do you think is the future of HR? And also, how do you think AI would complement, supplement, the central function? And what are the challenges, opportunities do you see in this space?
Yeah, interesting question. Everyone's talking about
Exactly.
AI. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So, I feel AI is here to complement what we are doing and help industry move forward. Every organization, I'm sure, is trying to come up with the use cases. Likewise, in Walmart, also, we're trying to experiment and see how AI is helping us. And we have some early positive use cases that we are seeing through AI, which is, again, how do we integrate skills, as I said, into people processes? How do we use the AI to figure out, right, like to come up with a skill gap analysis, right? Like we do skill gap analysis. We also then use AI to promote, right, like career pathing, to make it visible to every associate, to say that if you have a skill today, how can you reskill or upskill yourself? Where do you want, how do you see your career? What are the skills that you will require in future? Then AI helps us in sort of generating those potential course or certification or reskill opportunity or upskill opportunity for our associates to move into, to learn and then also achieve their, career that they have, their dream career that they have in the organization. So in terms of recommending the learning journeys, recommending the career path, and then also once you've upskilled, recommending the internal available jobs to you. So it's actually everything available to associates. So that's kind of AI use cases that we are working on. It's also about, I'm sure, the industry is going to look at all aspects of HR to look at these use cases, whether it is about engagement or it is about, sort of onboarding, recruiting. There are multiple use cases there as well. So I'll say it is here to stay. It is here to bring a lot of great experience for everyone, a lot of productivity gain for everyone. It is going to complement the industry quite a bit.
Fantastic. I think while you were narrating the use cases, I could see entire value chain. There is a use case of AI which has been, thought of, and I think the way it will complement in the future, it'll be fantastic, right? Great use case for anyone who's thinking of a career in HR that way, right? So, Also, throughout your journey, right? I mean, there have been different instances. I mean, just building up on this, right? Like AI has come in, right? There might have been different technologies or different, changes which would have happened in the conventional method. So, as a leader, how do you align to that changes, and how do you make sure that the entire organization, which was following some other methodology, just changes? So, the curiosity expands from this way that you've always been a part of big organizations, right? And any change which has to be implemented has to go down to the last level, right? So in such organizations, how do you make sure that whatever messages you want to convey, it flows down, and which might be 100% 180-degree opposite to what the company's been following, right? So how do such changes happen?
Yeah, so I guess you're talking about the change
Yes,
management.
change management.
Yeah, and I think it's very important for every organization to be agile, right? Like if an organization, you look at any organization, and if I take AI example, right? Some are way ahead in the journey,
Yeah.
some are catching up, and some are still exploring whether they want to catch up or not, right? Like it depends on where you are in the journey. But I would also say that, you have to take the organization along with you. So, agility, as I said growth mindset. I also said curiosity is very, very important. So, in terms of how you're, asking questions, piloting some of these things, doing innovation, communication plays a very important role. Manager enablement plays a very important role. How are we taking our managers along with us? How are we taking our associates along with us? What are the right touch points to communicate to our associates in the organization? I also personally feel it becomes very important for an organization to talk about why we are doing.
Yeah,
So if you want to take everyone together, it's not about what we are doing and how we are doing. What becomes very important is why we are doing. And as long as everyone, you're able to take everyone together, then that, you are successful. Of course, it's not easy. Of course, it's bigger the organization, the more, touch points you need to have, or better change management you need to have. And that's where I think the communication, agility, manager enablement, all of it comes in picture.
Well, I think that's a fantastic insight. I think why is something which generally is missing, right?
Yes.
People have been told that you have to do something. Why is the larger picture is generally missing? And I think if the last person also knows it, I mean, that brings a sense of entitlement. That brings a sense of,
Ownership and
ownership.
response.
Yeah. And then it can drive,
Yes.
the thing together. This is a very interesting insight. Also would want to understand, so when I look at HR, right, I think it's the most important central function, because it sits between the business and the people who are driving the business, right? And you have to have an equal tap on both the sides, right? And hence, not only understanding people, but also understanding the different shift in the industry, the different shift in technology, the shift in business practice, right? All of that you have to be very, very well aware of. So over the years, I mean, if you would want to advise someone who's looking forward to a career in HR, right? How do you make time for making yourself aware with what's happening around the world? Because your life is one leg there, one leg here, right? So how do you make sure that you are updated all times with respect to what's happening in the world? Maybe changes in the HR world, maybe new emerging techniques, methods, tools, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So how does that happen for you?
Yeah, for myself, yeah, I'll talk, a couple of things, right? One is, of course, I spend a lot of time reading, listening podcasts. So, not that I get a lot of time, but whenever, right, I get time, I combine it with my either workout or walking. So I keep listening to podcasts. That gives me a lot of perspective from industry leaders who talk about how technology landscape is changing or how industry is changing. So I utilize that time. I also network with my industry peer. That's a great opportunity to learn about what other companies are doing and how they are thinking about industry change and how industry is shaping. So that's another perspective. Spending time with my peers in the organization who are in the core business side also helps in understanding the business landscape and listening from them how they are looking at business side of things. So these are some ways to sort of keep your I keep myself updated about what's going on in industry and how my peers in the industry are thinking about, the people strategy and people side of the house. So that's been very helpful.
Understood. And any one or two reading sources, maybe podcasts, you constantly binge on, maybe so that it helps the viewers?
It's predominantly from HR standpoint. There's I think in Indian ecosystem, it's SV Nathan. Like I look up to him, and Marshall Goldsmith. I think everybody knows.
Yeah.
So a lot of his book also helps, and his LinkedIn page and
Fantastic.
his podcast also helps.
Fantastic. I think that'll be helpful for people listening to this podcast. So you've been a women leader, right? And there's a lot of talk around, women being at the apex position at the company, right? And you being yourself one, I would just want to understand your opinion and, how do you think this would significantly change? Because currently, even if I look at current market numbers, it's still not a sizable number while everyone talks about it, right? So just want to get your opinion on the same, and also any myths you want to break about, women rising to the apex positions at the workplace.
Yeah, I think industry, all the organization industries talking about it, we still have a long way to go. What I feel is that we, not only in HR community, but otherwise also everyone in the organization need to be far more mindful in terms of putting the policies into practice, right? I don't think so. It's about, celebrating women on a special day. It's more about how do we support them to bring them back to the workforce. And not just that, continue to support them, continue to take, support them till the time they're working and reach to a certain level. I think for women population, and what has worked for me is a very strong support system around me. Not only the support that I got back in, at my home, but also in my professional environment, the kind of mentors that I got. And not just mentors, I say that there are sponsors who are required, right? Like for women in the organization and for everybody else also. But I would say specifically for women, since you asked this question, as to how do we continue to focus and be more intentional about, the benefits that will help them to get them back to the workforce, or the needs are very different. What policies or benefits that we bring in the organization to ensure that they have the kind of work-life balance that they need to have, because the responsibility at the home side is not becoming any less.
Yeah.
So it's that, but at the same time, the environment is pretty competitive. So how to continuously support them? I think mentorship programs, lean-in circles, the sponsorship circles, or sponsorships that we have for women. I think all organizations need to be far more intentional about that. I also say that how do we create a community, and a lot of organizations do programs around, have resource groups that work towards community like women and other communities as well. But it's also about having a close-knit support system that if you're not today in office, who else can you fall back on, right? So that's there. And also from academy standpoint, right? Like how do we get them more in engineering colleges? I still find the ratios are
very skewed, correct.
So how academia is thinking about it, right? Like in terms of making it more approachable for girl child, right? Like how do we look at STEM program? How do we look at campus placements? And then for institutes or for organizations to continue to support them throughout their career journey.
No, absolutely. I think it has to start from the level one, which is academia, right? And then, of course, transforms progressively, because if the right foundation is being set, then it translates to the right outcome that way.
Yeah. I would say right policies, like as I said, right, benefits. It's not about celebration. I feel about, I'm very passionate about equality. So there has to be an equal opportunity. It's not about reserving seat, or it's not about doing anything extraordinary, but it's about providing equal opportunity and supporting them through that opportunity.
Understood. That's a very fair thought. So this has been a very turbulent year, right, in terms of the opportunities around the market, right? So I just want to understand what would be your advice to anyone who's listening to this podcast, right, and about to join the corporate workforce, right? What would be your 2-3 key principles for that person, so that that person is super motivated to enter the corporate game?
Sure. I would say, of course, failures or setbacks, as I said, it's not a roadblock, it's a learning opportunity. I think what it's a building block, right? Like talking out of my own experience, I've had multiple setbacks in my career. So it's about what do we learn from these setbacks? And not just career, personal life, right? Like we go through lots of ups and downs. I would say stay curious, uh, ask questions as many as you can, be open to feedback, build relationships, build network around you. That's become very, very important. You get to learn. Pivot when you get an opportunity. When you feel that something is not aligned to your values or passion, pivot. Don't be afraid. So be curious, and be very passionate about what you want to do in your life, be it corporate world or be it a startup world, or you want to open something on your own, you want to become an entrepreneur. I think what is important is curiosity and resilience. These two things works everywhere. So again, summarizing, saying that ask questions, be open to the feedback, and build relationships, build network in the industry, and learn from all your ups and downs and move forward.
I think those are fantastic 3 advices to everyone who's about to join the corporate or the startup world. No, but over here I have an interesting thought, right? So every decade there is a shift of mentality, mindset, right? So currently we have Gen Zs coming into the workplace, right? 10 years back it would have been something different, right? So as a leader, you would have to adopt to certain different policies for such kind of shifts as well, cultural shifts as well, right? How do you adapt on that level?
I would say it always has been like that. Every time, your campus hires would join the corporate, and then you have, middle section, middle management. You also have top management who probably are with 25, 30 years of experience. So you always will see a different talent segment in the organization. The policies are, or the benefits are for all sort of segment in the organization, for all talent segment. So their needs are different. Like for them, then we curate our processes, we curate our benefits differently that supports each segment. For example, the learning content is now getting very different, and the way our talent segment consume it, it's not also dependent upon the generation, whether millennial or some other generation consume it differently. It's typically how people consume. We've seen the shift overall, right? Like in last 10 years. So instead, classroom sessions for 3 hours, how do you make your learning content bite size, very engaging, conversational? That's just one example. And then how do you look at supporting the needs, right? I do see a lot of our associates, not only in Walmart, but I do also hear from my peers in industries that, talent these days connect themselves with the social cause. They have a lot of passion about that. How corporates are fueling their passion, right? Like, and are providing opportunities to them to make a difference in society. So that's there. How do we give volunteering leaves to them? How do we support their needs, right? So for all of us, right, like me and probably my peers in the industry, for every organization, it's also about how are we crafting our benefits for all talent segment, and how are we crafting our talent strategies, not just the benefit, but also the way we are hiring them, training them, retaining them, growing them in the organization also changes for the talent segment.
So essentially, it's a complete. I mean, it's all about understanding who you're hiring, and then creating a web around what they want and what are their needs,
and personalizing this people program or the benefit for their need. It's no more. I personally feel quite a quite strongly about it. It's not the consistency of experience anymore. It's about personalization of experience.
Well, that's a very interesting insight. Personalization of experience is something which can actually, take you for a longer run and can actually make people happy in the organization at the end of the day. So, one question I would also want to ask about your experience with startups, because you've been an angel investor yourself, and you've been a board advisor to a lot of them as well. So, in the current era, and of course, a lot of our viewers would be entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs, right? There is a trade-off between maintaining growth and also maintaining the vision and culture of the organization, right? A lot of times it has been seen that one goes for a toss, and it is always the culture which goes for a toss, because everyone's running for the numbers and the value and the growth. Everyone wants to see those spikes in the numbers, right? So as a mentor or as a board advisor or as a very senior person who's been associated with this world, what would be your 2 cents on this, and how would you think people can actually strike that balance on ground?
Yeah, great question. And this is something that I get quite often. I personally don't feel it's a matter of or. It has to be and.
Absolutely.
Right? So it can't be just about running after the numbers. It's about building the culture. And quite often I see that some of the budding entrepreneurs think that, okay, today I'm going to achieve a certain number, this is the ROAS that I'm running after, and this is the revenue that I'm running after, and maybe once I achieve this, I'll start focusing on people, culture, processes, strategy. No, it needs to start from day one, is typically my advice to the founders. And there are companies who've done this. There are many companies in the industry who've done this right from day one. And their business strategy is completely dependent on the values and the culture, right? So there is a founder passion, a founder's value and mission, and then you tie everything around that. So it typically about what values do you believe in? How would you want your company to be known for? You may be able to achieve the revenue, you may be able to run after the numbers, you want to scale it, but you also don't want to descale it after a couple of years, right? Like, how are you building, if you're building the organization and you are an entrepreneur who wants to build the name and do something for the community, then you need to think about what are the values on which you want to build the organization. What is it that you want to be known for?
All right. So I think that's a very meaningful insight for the founder, right? Because if your strategy just does not tie with the culture you want to create, I mean, something will explode in the organization.
Even strategy has to fall back, right? Like we've seen COVID. In such scenarios, in pandemic or in a situation where you're in a tough situation, even in a business market, changing industry landscape, you are at a crossroad to take a decision. What will you fall back upon?
Correct.
At the end of the day, it's a testament to your values, and the purpose with which you have started the organization.
Very interesting insight. And I think that brings us to the end of this podcast. And it was very great having you, Bhumika. I think these learnings are very crucial for not only for someone who's about to join workforce, I mean for everyone. I mean a women leader who's about to enter the HR world, as an entrepreneur who's about to begin, his or her own startup. I think it was a very fantastic learning experience for all of them, and of course personally for me as well. Had a great time chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Likewise, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.